Okay, good evening. Thank you for attending the meeting. We've got a few people who want to speak this evening. So I don't see any reason to delay. We'll start with that. There is a 3-minute time limit, please. And Ms. Meyer is going to keep the time for us. First person on the list is Shailene Harris.
Hi, my name is Shailene Harris. For those of you who don't know me, I have 2 kids that attend Grangeville Elementary Middle School. When this meeting was scheduled to address the 4-day school week, I started reaching out to people in the community to encourage them to attend and speak. After seeing how many people wanted to have input but wasn't able to attend or didn't feel comfortable speaking, I decided to create this statement based on the feedback I received. As parents, staff, and community members, we encourage the board to stand by their decision of implementing the 4-day school week on a 2-year trial basis. This motion was voted on and passed 7 weeks ago and has been reevaluated several times. Revoking this decision at this point is a direct violation of our district policy and violates the Code of Ethics, Board Policy 1500P, Meeting Conduct and Order of Business. This has put a lot of strain on our students, parents, and staff, and our communities. It's time to stand by your decision and start coming together and implementing a plan to move this district forward. 2 of us acquired 197 in-person signatures. We did it just yesterday. We had 1 day to do it. We started out in Grangeville. We went to Harpster, Stites, and Kuski. I had some very good conversations with community members that are just ready to see that our district gets moved forward. I hope this meeting will be used to do just that. Thank you.
All right, Stacy Stone. Whenever you're comfortable.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stacy Stone. I'm a stay-at-home mom from Grangeville, and I currently have 3, soon to be 4 of my 5 kiddos attending Grangeville Elementary. I believe in the election process. I believe the election process is part of what makes America great. I believe that you who were voted in are capable of getting our district out of the mess we are currently in. I also believe it is my right and responsibility to speak up and fight for what's right for my children and family. I grew up in a small community that had a 4-day school week and loved it for many reasons. I do feel like the 4-day school week is a great start as a solution to the troubles we are facing. I know this is not ideal for some people and that it will be difficult for some families, but public school was never meant to be a babysitter. I also feel it is my responsibility to voice my concern over the negativity and the discourtesy I see in how the board is treated and how they treat each other. I hate the negativity our community and the school board is facing, and I want to ask you, what as a mom and what as a community can we do to help you? Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." How can we help you work together in an organized and efficient manner? How can we help you to be united as a board? And how can we support you and our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Lucia Charlie.
Doesn't matter where it's from.
Anywhere you like.
Okay, face me or face me.
Okay, sorry, I have to have glasses on. My name is Lucia Charlie. I am here as a concerned citizen as to what is going on within our school district. Just to rewind a little bit, I do have 4 grandchildren that are in this school district in school right now. I feel that we have some leaders on our school board that are here, for one reason, and that is for personal feelings and not wanting to pay higher taxes. They are not on our school board to improve our schools or make sure the children of our community get a good education. They only care about bare bone minimums so they can save a few $100s a year. I would like to make sure that everyone in our community and our state, for that matter, knows that Idaho has the lowest per student expenditures than any other state in the country. Idaho also has a tax surplus and is in the process of issuing additional refunds to all taxpayers. Why do we have a surplus and our schools are suffering without funding? In a perfect world, we would give that money to the schools. That would make total sense. In the meantime, we must make do with what we have. The only real logical savings that has been suggested and voted on is the 4-day school week. We need to move ahead with this and work as a community to gain back the support for our levies. This community needs and deserves a good education for our children. We need strong schools to attract doctors, lawyers, nurses, and other services much needed to our community. Right now, we don't have that and we need to fix it. So with that, I would never normally do this publicly in such a public way, but I am donating back my tax return that I just received. And I know it's a pebble of sand, you know, compared to the amount of money that is needed, but I'm hoping that it will give other people who are willing to support the schools and the levies the idea to do the same. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, next is Tammy Nail, I believe it is.
I'm Tammy Nail. I have 3 children in our school district, and I feel real strong with Shailene on the statement that she put out, and her and I went around the community. We had in-person conversations with community members, and some feedback that I received on the statement was very disheartening. Several people wanted to sign and agreed with it and would not sign out of fear of the board and what might come to them had they signed it and that their name was on that. And I'm ashamed that our community would have us here in this situation with this board.
Brittany Munn.
Okay, I'm Brittany. I have 7 children. Right now I have 5 of them who are in your school. I thank you for allowing us the time to talk. Frankly, I'm very disappointed in the fact that we all had to come down here to remind you guys that you already made this decision. I'm sure you have been getting some negative feedback. Look at our world. That's what we thrive off of, negative feedback. I want you to know that there are plenty of people standing here today who support the 4-day school district and support our teachers. But we are asking you, the school board, right now to be honorable. To earn the word respected, in this case, you leaders need to set a great example by putting on a smile, turning to true dedication for our school, not for personal gains, not for personal jabs, to remember that you're here setting an example of Jesus. It doesn't have to be a fight in front of our children that we are trying to set an example for. Change is hard, but in this case, change is much needed. We have hit rock bottom. We can't keep doing what we're doing. We have to be the face of change, the face of integrity, and the face of determination and growth. People are spending tons of time trying to figure out a better way for our community to help with placement of children on Fridays, something that will bring about a much needed rec center or a teen center to our little town. I was able to spend a bunch of time on Monday with students and staff from Orfino. They had nothing but praise for the 4-day school weeks. One student said she spends her Fridays on her senior project tutoring children. Another one working to earn money to buy her first car. Don't say that Fridays give our kids an opportunity to get into trouble. Let our kids show you that they can show up in this time. I talked with teachers who said they have seen their students thrive on a 4-day school week and how it has helped bring great teachers to fill in vacant roles, which we have. Fridays would be a great day for sports, so our kids wouldn't miss as much school. You also made a comment about having our eyes on students with not a great home life. Know that if we can see them longer into the summer, whether a week or 2, that's more beneficial than 5 days a week. Keeping our eyes on those kids is a better thing. Do your research and look into that. Most importantly, you made a decision that gives us some answers to a financial problem with our levy not passing without having to cut our teachers. This is a solution that actually brings about something positive for our teachers also. Let's be honest, we have nothing to offer our teachers right now. I sat through a board meeting where you all decided not to give them a cost of living raise, even though right now there's huge inflation going on. How frustrating for them to sit there quietly. Yet the only time a teacher spoke up was when we made cuts regarding reading curriculum. He stood up for students, and he stood up for his students before his own pocketbook. Talk about advocating for our students and talk about being a hero for our kids. Our teachers need us in a time when they are short-staffed and frankly very underappreciated. This is one way that we can show up and help them. By moving to a 4-day school week, they have Fridays off to catch up on work, and that gives them the weekends for their family. Anything worth fighting or worth having is worth fighting for. We are here fighting for our teachers and for our students, and they are worth this fight. Stick with your plans you have made, and we can do great things moving forward.
Devin Barker. Devon.
Devin, you got it. Can I get 2 minutes to the board? Well, that was a little hard to follow that one. Thank you for your comments. My name is Devin Barker, and I'd like to talk about the 4-day week. There are many benefits I feel to the 4-day week. I know we are focused tonight on the cost saving aspects of the 4-day week. There will be savings in electricity, the percentage of the district's 20% of busing costs, hourly wages, maintenance, and substitutes for employees who are sick, have doctor visits, and for coaches that are needing subs. One of the amazing benefits is having our buildings empty for 3 days. This gives time for the buildings to air out. This also gives students and teachers 3 days of recovery. I think both students and teachers will be healthier. This will directly impact the cost of the substitutes. Not having school on Fridays will also greatly reduce the need for substitutes for coaches. You cannot put an exact amount on that savings, but you can look at the data from the past to see how many subs are needed in our district on Fridays. I really feel retention of teachers will increase with the 4-day week. Some schools are promoting this as a benefit in their district. I feel Mountain View could use the same approach to retain teachers and to recruit teachers to our district. And that's what I handed to the board, one copy of the school doing just that. It's very similar to ours. Lastly, I would like to talk about our changing demographics. I have taught for over 25 years. In my experience, I have noted a shift in attendance. The amount of students who come for 5 days is decreasing to the point that if attendance of 4 days was prioritized, I would be able to move forward with more curriculum in 4 days than I am able to in 5. To be able to prioritize a 4-day week attendance, we need healthy students and staff. In addition, many parents are not working traditional jobs. They are choosing to take their kids with them for long weekends, so they are not rushed. I believe to enhance learning, we need to adapt to this change. Thank you for your time and for listening to me. I urge you not to revote. Please stick with your integrity and stand by the vote in March. Many people make career decisions based on your vote. Their decisions cannot be revoted. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Weller.
I am currently a teacher at Jones Elementary. I have 1 student in the school and 1 coming up. Let me just start off by saying it saddens me that we are in this position. I think most of us wish the levy had passed, so we wouldn't be making these hard decisions. The board wanted proof that a 4-day school week would save the district money. I cannot give an overall exact amount of money that would be saved with a 4-day school week, with utilities, supplies, staffing, busing, substitutes, etc. I'm here to speak on one aspect only, absences. I compiled data from the substitutes at Grangeville Elementary Middle School only for the past month. On average, we have 3.2 certified substitutes a day, 2.5 classified substitutes a day. That is costing Grangeville Elementary Middle School about $400 on a daily average. That number increases when you look at Fridays. Average $600 a day for Fridays. Last Friday, we had 11 substitutes in our building. That cost the district $1,233 just in our building. If you're asking if there will be a savings, the answer is yes.
I also compiled the average for student absences. 44 students are absent on average in our building daily. That jumps up to 48 on Fridays. 48 students gone. Will students still miss school? Yes. Will having an extra day at home and providing them time to do traveling, doctor's appointments, etc., alleviate some of those absences? Yes. Less subs equals less expense to the district. Thank you for your time.
Valerie Peppercorn.
I actually was here talking to you guys the last time we were down here in CV and had thought maybe some of the things had gotten through, but maybe not. Well, some of you may feel that you approved the 4-day week before really researching it for yourself. The fact is, you all did vote it and you made that choice. Not only does Robert's Rules of Order not allow you to just re-vote, but it also is possible that the board and school district could face legal ramifications if you take back your vote on the 4-day week. However, more important than the legality, at least to me, is the impact that it will have on our students and staff. You heard from Maureen Burney at the last board meeting about how badly she needs you to get a calendar approved. If you take back your vote, you are prolonging that process of getting a calendar made. And no calendar means no summer food program. Think about that for a minute. That means none of our kids who need that food to survive will have that over the summer if you don't do something. Get the calendar done. We also, I know that it was a problem that people thought about, well, the food issue is a deal that is going to be a problem on those Fridays that we wouldn't have school for a 4-day week. I can tell you as caregivers, we teachers, we're going to take care of that. We're going to make sure our students are taken care of and we're going to look into that, and it won't be something that we will let happen. But if you don't do your job, it will be something we can't do anything over the summer. We have too many students that depend on that food to survive over the summer. So move forward and get our 4-day week calendar you made approved for our kids. I'd also like you to think about the effect that reversing your decision will have on your staff and the relationship with you. If you can change your mind about a 4-day week, what else can you change your mind on? The 4-day week decision was based on financial savings. Taking it back would mean needing further cuts. If you can't afford a cost of living increase of $310,000, or you can't afford new reading curriculum for our kids and our staff, then how can you afford a 5-day week? You will have to go back to the drawing board. On the chopping block, sports, which many of our kids love and our parents don't want to do. You guys clearly didn't want to do it because no one would even second Melissa's motion on it. Our programs, art, music, FFA. How many of those will have to go? And you already voted not to cut any of our FTE to maintain it. You take that back, how many of us aren't safe anymore? How many of your teachers and paras, bus drivers, how many of us have to go if you take it back? Do you really want to start that ripple effect?
Kelly Gregg.
Frank, just speaking from as a community member. I had kids that went to school here and graduated from MVSD. I feel moving to a 4-day week will have a more negative impact in our communities than a cost savings to the schools. I think it will affect employment for many and not just school employees. Parents who work 5 days a week will have to find childcare for whatever day the board chooses to not have school. Some will be able to have family or friends provide that service, but other parents will have to find daycare or move, or have a parent give up their job to stay home. Any choice will have an impact on their income. And to my knowledge, there is no daycare here in MVSD. So, people will have to make choices here real soon about, how they're going to handle if this shift happens.
We don't need people to leave our area, just the opposite. Now more than ever, after the past couple of years dealing with COVID, businesses closing down, and everything hitting our economy so hard, we need our communities to flourish. We need new people in the area. We need people to want to come here and settle, bring their families and put them in school. And we need to provide a good school, one that offers all that it can. And a 4-day school week seems a little lacking to me when people are looking for a place to settle. Is that something that they will look at and say, maybe we'll move on? Because if they're at a 4-day week, you know, what caused that? What other hardships are in the area? Maybe this isn't the place for us. The education of our children should be the main focus, and more time spent in school can only be a positive thing. For one day, these same people that we are educating are going to be making life choices for the next generation. Overall, I think a 4-day school week is a huge mistake that our communities cannot afford to make.
Maureen, Bernie?
I'd like to share that Kelly is my lead cook over at Clearwater Valley Elementary. She's been with Chartwell since 1999 and 5 or 6 years prior to that as a district food service person. She's been here a while. Anyway, my topic is one for all, and we have 5 schools in our district. If we are really moving forward on this 4-day-a-week calendar, I think it's essential to change Elk City to your new calendar. We all need to be on the same page. We need to have the same focus. Taking care of our kids, taking care of our community is what we need to be doing. We need to come together on this. Set aside your petty differences, your prejudice, your politics, whatever you call it. We have to find a way, as Kelly alluded to keep our communities and our children in a vibrant, healthy environment. So please, in my opinion, you've already decided, let's get it done so we can all move on and figure out what's really going to happen in our lives so we can focus on the positive things that we can make happen. Thank you.
Is that popping right?
First of all, we were out of town when you had this discussion before, so I've got some questions is what I need. First, everyone's talking about saving money with the 4-day work week, school week, but does that mean you don't have to have kids in school the same number of days? I thought states had set that.
Instructional minutes.
It set my minutes.
Set by minutes. And does this mean that we're going to be expanding school going into the summer and starting earlier in the fall?
It's a 20 to 30 minute addition to each day. Right, I know, but
Just in all fairness, we're not legally supposed to have.
I can
know,
answer your
it's very
questions later.
frustrating. Yeah,
promise.
please. Contact
and you
us.
can always
Contact-
email us ahead of time and we'll answer them as well.
Okay, because I don't see where it's saving money if we're going longer.
Understand?
Thank you for understanding. Joyce Robinson,
I pass.
thank you. Heather, sorry, I can't read it. McCoy,
McCarty?
yes. Thank you.
I'm a teacher here at CDHS. And I just wanted to echo to you, the board members, that most of the teachers that I have spoke to here at CDHS are in favor of 4-day school. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And finally, Renita Lee.
Well, considering my topics have actually been very thoroughly covered and so eloquently, I'm going to skip my first. And I will go to my second. when we talked about the school district is on your estimate $1.7 million short. That estimate was given in November of 21. This current year's budget was proposed with a 2.3% CPI index, consumer price index added to it, in inflation rate. Unfortunately, your budget already right now, if inflation comes to a screeching halt as of the end of April, because the CPI index for May is not out yet, you are already 6% off on your estimate for your 22-23 school year budget. So you're not $1.7 million short, you're much more. That being said, I understand that there's pros and cons on a 40 school week, but I don't think that you can really argue that you can save some funds there. We no longer have the ability to go in and wipe out $600,000 to $800,000 in one fatal swoop by gutting the dependent insurance program. You've already done that. You now have to start looking at the small things. You are not 1.7 in the hole. Right now, I believe you're 2.4 in the hole today. Pray to God inflation stops right now. So what are you going to do when you run out of money, in my estimate, in February of 2023? What do you do? Because I don't think that the school district has a credit card. So what are you going to close or not pay, or how does that work? Because you will be short. So what I'm saying is move on, make all the necessary changes that you have to make, and everyone else will adjust. There are many people in this community, including myself as a business owner, that have already made arrangements and concessions to help some of the individuals who are going to lose a few hours, 5 to 7 hours a week, and we've made positions available on Friday for those personnel that want the job. Now, I've run into many of them. I've interviewed 3 people or asked 3 people if they would like to have a 6-hour-a-day job on Friday. And they said, no, they wanted Friday off with their kid. Make the changes, move on. You have to come up with more than $1.7 million.
Mr. Dunn, I thought you were too late to sign in. Should I speak?
Sure. What's your name, please?
Hi, Ms. Carla. I sent you an email last night. I know 2 of you responded, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. It makes me feel valued as a community member and a teacher. So since I'm not sure some of you got it, I just wanted to say a few things that I emailed. It's probably longer than 3 minutes, so I'll talk fast. Let's see. I really appreciate the position you guys are in. It's a monumental job, and I appreciate the time. You're voluntary. You guys aren't paid, and I do appreciate it. Huge decisions that have to be made. However, it baffles me in the midst of this crisis. Yeah, we're in a crisis. There's so much indecisiveness, and let's just wait and see what happens or pass it on. Maybe not just on this decision, but on a lot of things. You were voted in by us, the community, to provide leadership and bring solutions and ideas to the meeting and to make decisions. And this is not a time to be a passive observer. I love our community, and I want to stay here and be a teacher here. And it's getting harder and harder to do that with all the upheaval, the failed levy, and mistrust. There's stress on my job every single spring. Is my job going to be cut? We just heard music, art, FFA. That's me. And it's very stressful. And so this year, I started looking for other jobs. And I was recruited by a district that I could drive to that had dependent insurance. You guys, that was huge. That was a huge cut for me not to have dependent insurance. And so I really looked at it. And then you passed the 4-day school week. And I was like, this is great. So I stayed. And now this, that job's not available. I would have, I don't know. So anyway, that's frustrating. A lot of us made
decisions based on your decision. And to go back on it, I believe is illegal. And it will cause more mistrust. I feel like we're just getting there. I'm like, this is gonna be good, you guys. Here we are. We're gonna work together. There's been a cleansing. It's time. Here we go. This is gonna be so great. And then that setback 2 weeks ago, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I have family members and friends in Crane, Oregon, Soda Springs, Grace, American Falls, Notice, Weston, Idaho. They love the 4-day work week. Teachers, families, community members. They've scheduled their sports on Fridays. That's when they do their doctor's appointments. The rate of attendance has gone up in those 4 days. There's test scores, everything, the savings, the money savings, they've all loved that. So I say, let's give it a try. You made a decision. Let's give it a try. It sounds like people are behind you, and everyone that I've talked to, 9 out of 10, they're there. We want to try it. Let's give it a try.
Yep.
I long for the day working in a school district of stability, peace, and respect. And I want to live in a community that has pride in and works hard to support our schools. You guys are a piece of that puzzle. All of us are a piece of that puzzle. Peacemakers bring solutions. They bring solutions. They listen to understand. They don't listen to attack back. They set aside personal agendas and work together for the good of the group. I know that we can do this. And when I say we, I mean we. I know we can do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir?
I didn't get on the sign-in sheet. May I have one word as well?
Sure. What's your name?
Vincent Martinez.
Thank you, Vincent.
I'm allowed?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. So for me, I am a teacher here at Clearwater Valley High School. I am a patron. I own land, and I do have kids that attend this school very happily. A few years back, I made a comment, 84 times 50 is not 10,000. And that cost me a little bit of my time and whatnot, and that we'll move on from that. But I have, we've talked about this budget for years and years. We passed levies. I am a certified government teacher here at Clearwater Valley High School and within the state of Idaho. And so I'm not currently assigned to that, but I have taught government classes here. And so it is in all fairness, as your governmental body of our district, to be able to rescind your motion, make a motion to rescind your action on the 4-day school week. But I would also offer from the other side, from a student perspective, and as an individual as I was learning through my life, that when you open doors when you make a decision and then open the but-for door, somebody's going to walk through it. So for us in the government class, it's really hard to teach them, yep, the government made the decision. Because we're challenged all the time. Why, if you're going to talk critical race theory, or you want to talk in all grand scheme of things, marijuana, because it's all around us, right? And so those things come up in the government class, really hard to navigate in that scheme. But the government, our body, makes the decision. You guys make the decision. So it sends awkward mixed messages to the students we're trying to teach on a daily basis outside of government, that, like, the decision is made. You got to deal with it, deal with the consequences. And so I'm not advocating for or against. I'm just saying, as the governing body, in my econ classroom, because we get to talk about this stuff, because this is decision making. You guys are the decision making, right? And so you made a decision, and now you're putting it upon the body, and to reverse that decision, for whether it's political, religious, or whatever that decision is, or maybe we didn't do our math. I give kids grades all the time, and then they come to me and say, hey, can I get a better grade? Well, you didn't do it right. Did you do your research? Did you do your homework? Well, I did, but I got test anxiety. I can give you all kinds of answers, excuses under the sun to under the sun, why that person didn't get it right, or this person did, or whatever. I'm just saying, from the top of the top in this district, for the decision making outside of Mr. Fisk and anybody else, and to the lowest student in kindergarten, you've made a decision. And now you're trying to pull back from that decision for whatever reason. It makes it hard for the classroom educator to say, hey, well, yeah, don't challenge your mom and dad. They made the decision. I mean, it starts at the most basic of levels. We're community here. It takes a community to raise a village. And I can tell you, this community helped raise my village.
Thank you. That concludes the public input session, and I would be open to any motions.
I have a statement I'd like to read.
Yes, sir.
My request for this meeting is not about a revote on the 4-day school week. My concern is that a very hasty and poorly thought out vote took place with no clear path forward. Any respectable presentation should have included where and how any savings would be recognized, where they would come from, and the amount of savings that would be available to the district. No evidence other than repeated talking points from internet sources stating that a 5% savings might be possible with the figure of $550,000 was repeatedly thrown out, but with no evidence whatsoever that it was plausible to Mountain View School District. After the vote, there was no more serious discussion on the ramifications of the vote. No decision has been discussed or arrived at about non-certified employees. One option is for all employees to continue working the same hours. Something that I agree with. However, if that stands, then how are any savings made possible? The other option is to cut everyone other than certified staff by 20%. That would be extremely detrimental to the employees, especially with the inflation at all-time high and with the current living costs. I see no fairness in reducing the pay for these hardworking employees, but once again, where is any savings? Where is the promised $550,000 coming from? A tiny bit might be available from turning off the lights on Friday, but that amount would soon be wiped out by the $80,000 deficit owed to the food providers for breach of contract. I received many emails this week from teachers, mostly expressing how inconvenient they would be by going back to a 5-day school week. I can appreciate that. Only one teacher expressed any concern about children, special needs children, and kids with IEPs. Daycare, lack of meals, or the inconvenience to parents and families were never mentioned by anybody that I got an email from. Even the teacher that had serious reservations about the special needs children and the hasty decision of the 4-day school week made no mention of the inconvenience to families. While many former teachers and actually many former board members expressed concern about the lack of learning time in the class, here again, not one concern from any current teacher about the loss of education was expressed to me. One former educator who, by the way, is in favor of the 4-day school week did send me a link to it's called The Shrinking School Week by Paul Thomason, which is very critical about the significant, quote, dip in scores surrounding the 4-day school week. And that was an extensive study. In the real world, any board member who would have voted for a major change such as this without seeing any details, projections, or other pertinent information would most likely have been terminated by the CEO before the end of the meeting. I submit to the board that this change has nothing to do with the cost of savings. B. Edwards has, for as long as I've been on the board, asked questions many, many times at budget hearings or levy meetings, quote, how about a 4-day school week? This was long before a levy ever failed or before we experienced any financial difficulties. While we've received many emails from teachers this week, I assume that the board members who voted for the 4-day school week is way out of touch with its constituents. If we reduce non-certified employees, including office staff, administrators, and hourly employees, many will leave. Every business in town has help wanted signs in their windows. If we don't, we'll see if we don't do this, we'll see no significant savings. The fact that no plan was produced to show the savings tells me that the 4-day school week has absolutely nothing to do with cost savings. The lack of concern for our children's education is not going to go over well with the public. The money we leave on the table, so to speak, meaning the cost of paying employees for not working, according to my calculations, will far exceed, even possibly double, the amount of the last levy request. I see this kind of fiscal responsibility antagonizing the district taxpayers for many years to come. Perhaps not with many in this room, but I do have a good rapport and have a good feel for the aspiration of our citizens in general in our district. And the fiscal irresponsibility and lack of concern shown by this board toward our children's education is going to have a long-reaching consequences. I will not motion or I will not second any revote. Those who are responsible for this can fix it, reverse it, or live with it. And as the real politicians say, Mr. Chairman, I revert back to you.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question? So
Take
Casey's
question.
statement. Casey, was that your research for, do you have some research to provide on cost savings for a 5-day?
It's not my job.
All right, all right.
Casey, you weren't at the meeting where we chose to do budget cuts. Did you have something that you wanted to add to replace that $180,000 that we needed?
I've made my statement. If you have something to say, go ahead and say it.
So I say, he's trying to take further comment. Does anybody else have a statement that they want to make? And or offer a motion, which can be discussed as well, obviously. But if not, I have a statement. It's a brief one. All right. When I voted for the 4-day school week, it was because, and this has continued to be the same with the number of both. Mr. Fisk recently emailed us about looking at peer review studies, which are a scientific standard different than op-eds, if you will. The thing that I wanted to find out, because I kept hearing pretty consistently from the people that I talked to, the teachers, the everyday people and administrators of superintendents and principals of not only the schools here, but also other jurisdictions, is you're not going to save any money. Generally speaking, the figure 2.5% is thrown around as the savings that you get from a 4-day school. That being said, I'm sitting here scratching my head over the last 5 weeks or so, thinking, why in the world is that the case? There's a variety of reasons for it, but I Googled, why don't, this simple question, why don't 4-day school weeks save districts money? All right, pretty basic question. Okay, you know what the answer that I got was? It's no surprise, because districts weren't willing to make the cuts necessary to make it happen. I stated previously, and apparently, and not that this should be dispositive of anything, but I stated previously, it's just an opinion of mine. I recently spoke to Mr. Fisk in this regard, and my position has always been, and I guess I should have been more out front about wanting to talk about this. My position has been since before I decided to vote for it the first time, that unless we're willing to shut it down, and I mean district office, shut the schools, shut it down 20%, all right, then we're not going to see any savings. We're not. Now, is that realistic in a lot of people's minds? Like child care frequently gets brought up. That's a real thing. We have special needs kids, different types of special needs kids that need to be addressed. All of these things. There's varying degrees of reasons why we may want to have a school building or a room even open when it's otherwise supposed to be closed. But from my perspective, that was what I was looking at. So if we're not willing to do that as a starter, okay, and I will share with you, and I was very upfront with Mr. Fisk because he was good. He's always good about asking follow-up questions. I said, that includes the district office. That includes every office. We're closed. As I've mentioned before, and I apologize for having to repeat myself, I've gone through this and worked for a state agency. But we weren't asked, we were told. And we got a furlough program. It's what we got. They cut our hours. We were salary. Everybody was salary in this particular department. And it wasn't working after the last or first couple of months they tried it. So they doubled up or doubled down, depending on how you want to use the language. And so it eventually did work, but this was negotiated without our input by our association. And that was that. We all lived through it and moved on, got back to a full-time work week. My point is that I actually don't disagree with one single person that I've talked to about this. I absolutely do. I would prefer a decision that makes sense. Everybody's seen that those magicians that keep all the plates spinning on the little sticks. That's what this feels like. And the plates are starting to drop. And people are realizing that, okay? And if we don't do something different, we're going to keep getting the same results. That being said, let me close with that concept. I think everybody has pretty much heard that that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting different results. It's pretty clear. It's pretty darn clear that we should not expect to be able to pass any levy in this district for the foreseeable future. That's not of my making. If anybody tells you that I went out, for whatever it's worth, since we're on the topic, and campaigned against the levy, they're lying. They're flat out lying. Okay, this is what makes everything hard, is the lack of not only transparency, but the lack of truth out there. All right, this is the situation that we have. But if we're not willing to learn, as I said, it's got to be 3-4 months ago now, to live and make budgets without levy money being in the projection, I can't see how we get out of this. I just don't. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I did a little research of my own. And I was just looking at Friday absences. I'm sure I bombarded Todd with lots of questions here today and yesterday. Mr. Rodriguez, all the secretaries. I just want you to know that there has not been a single Friday in this school district that there is not at least 1 to 2 teachers absent just in this junior high and high school alone. 591 total absences for the year for staff, just at CV middle school and high school. If that's at, let's just say it's $120 a day pay rate, that's $70,000. 111 absences on Fridays. Now the students, I compiled a couple different dates recently that were non-athletic days on Fridays. 415 here, 73 kids were absent out of 224. That's a lot of kids absent. That's dangling to the 20% mark, or what's the shutdown rate? When is it, when how many kids are
We'd
absent?
like to creep towards 30%, but 25% is a number that, when it's due to illness,
Yeah.
we would
Shut it
consider
down.
shutting down.
411, 38 students were absent. That was a little bit better. But out of 224 kids, that's a lot of kids absent on a Friday. Looking at my Fridays, that's $13,320 on a $120 pay scale, just in subs alone at CV junior high and high school. I didn't get a chance to compile CVE's absences, but Kama and Loretta were extremely helpful. I just wanted to throw that little bit of information for you.
Thank you. Well, but great. Absolutely. Further This meeting is scheduled on the agenda. You'll see it's here. We're here to discuss the 4-day school week. It's listed as an action item, which legally means it's a agenda item at which we may or may not make a decision about something. That doesn't obligate us to make a decision about anything, just so you know. So I'm just saying that so everybody's on the same page that way. Absent further.
Can I call a point of clarification in Robert's Rules of Orders? Point of clarification on what your action item?
Well, I'd have to ask you to obey the same rules as everybody else. Please come and see me after. Okay?
But
Please.
yes.
Thank you.
Larry, I just want to say that I think there's kind of a couple of things being discussed, and in some ways there's two different things. I understand what Casey's talking about having adequate information. And I think my biggest concern is our school district looked at moving to a 4-day school week in 2005 and made the decision not to. But the difference is when our school district made that decision, they spent a considerable amount of time having a task force look at that from top to bottom. And if they would have moved forward, they would have had adequate time to plan and be prepared and get it in place in a way that made the most sense for both the staff and the community. And I am not sold on a 4-day school week. I am not sold against a 4-day school week. My biggest concerns are stepping into a situation where we're making this decision because we're looking for cost savings. If the cost savings are hard to put our fingers on and the cost savings are low, then that doesn't make this the reason why the decision was made. And so if we look at what they did in 2005, they came up with whatever it was, I want to say like $68,000. We adjust for inflation or whatever else. I'm not saying that that would be the number that we would come up with, but what that says to me is we should really take a look at it. And I agree with what Larry is saying. If we don't want to cut our certified staff salaries, if we don't want to cut our non-certified staff salaries, if we don't want to be in a situation where we do those things, then I think we needed to take time to look at what the decisions we're making, and we needed to have maybe put forward a motion that asked our administrators and our community and our teachers to look at what would this 4-day week school look like, and take into consideration full concerns. What does this mean for childcare? What does it mean for our daycares? What does it mean for Kids Club? What does it mean to our lunch staff? What does it mean to our school bus drivers? I'm not saying that we should have a 4-day school week. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a 4-day school week. I think that if we are going to do something, we should evaluate, decide, plan, and then change. I think that we should do the work before we make the change, not make the change and then try to do the work. So with that being said, I'm just going to throw it out there. I would make a motion that Mountain View School District operates on a 5-day school week and convenes a task force made up of community members, teachers, and administrators to evaluate the educational, financial, and community impacts of a 4-day school week. I would recommend that the task force members be selected by the incoming superintendent with the final report and recommendation to be given to the board no later than the regular December 2022 board meeting, which would essentially, if it was agreed upon to move forward, give about 6 months for plans and actions to go into effect.
So how do we afford next year?
Right.
Yeah.
And you voted a trial, and you've had 7 weeks to look into those things.
All right.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
I'm sorry. I can't. If I let you, I have to let everybody. I'm
did
sorry,
you
I
say
can't.
Mountain View School District in your proposal? I just couldn't hear.
What she's proposing is for the entire school district.
Okay. It's including Elk City. Hope so.
All right, so if you don't mind me restating, what we have is a motion on the table to convene a task force, otherwise known as a committee, to look into a 4-day school week. Basically, what I'm going to call it is a comprehensive look at everything that's involved for purposes of making recommendations in specific areas that appear to be what I'll call more critical than others. They're one of those things, and
Did somebody second that?
I'm simply clarifying the motion that I was going to ask for.
Oh, got it.
But thank you.
Okay.
In any event, it's to convene a task force to look into, study if you want, the ramifications and the whys and wherefores of if we were to go to a school, a 4-day school. That's a lot of words,
Okay,
but
so
that's it.
point of parliamentary procedure. Clerk, can you restate the motion?
Ready to read that?
can't. I'm trying to get it written down.
That was what I was trying to do.
So do you want to restate your motion?
Wanna do that? I was gonna ask that I get it right.
I can do that, and I can also hand it to Polly.
That's good. If you could restate it as well.
That would be good.
I motion that Mountain View School District, I guess I should amend it because I didn't even think about that. With the exception of Elk City, operates on a 5-day school week and convenes a task force made up of community members, teachers, and administrators to evaluate the educational, financial, and community impacts of a 4-day school week. The task force members to be selected by the incoming superintendent with a final report and recommendation to be given to the board no later than the regular December 2022 board meeting.
So did you amend that motion?
Can't amend the motion that's been made without being seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Good, Polly. Okay. Motion's on the table. Do I hear a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Any other motion or, for that matter, discussion on this right here?
I have just a little bit of a discussion for the 4-day, if that's okay. Okay. So, I don't know, let me get my notes here. I was talking about a 4-day school week for a very long time, because I was a teacher for 14 years and I saw it revealed to me and I was like, gosh, we have no money. Why would we not consider that? So then when I was running for this position, people asked me, why don't we do that? And I was like, I don't know, I'll look into it. So since November, I've been looking into the 4-day school week, and I apologize if you guys did not do that same research. But I in my life, I plan for like both scenarios, like if the levy's gonna pass or the levy's gonna fail. So I kind of had like an idea in my head of if the levy was gonna pass, this is what I was gonna do, or hope for, and then if it was gonna fail, that's what I was gonna do. So again, I'm presenting some numbers because I did some research. Casey, if you want to turn around and maybe look at it. This is the research you've been asking for. Again, I asked you guys to bring the savings that you had planned for a 5-day week. And I really don't know any other way to save money at this point besides a 4-day week, which is why I proposed it. So We'll start with the levy, what we ran it for and why. People were saying that SRS money came in, yes, but we had already planned on that. As you can see here, we had already had that in there. And we planned on 1,050,000 per Todd, and he was pretty darn close. It was 1,060,000 that we're getting. So with that, at another meeting we had, we decided to agree on some savings. So we agreed on 310,000, no 3% increase, 300,000, no curriculum, 700,000 save we would use from our savings account, and 200,000 we would use for athletic transport. So with that, we had 190,000 deficit, which is why I proposed a 4-day school week. So with some of Lacey's help and a lot of the financial secretary's help today and last few days, I got the actual numbers for the 21-22 subs that were used at GEMS, GHS, CVE, and CV Middle High School. I would have included Elk City, but they're already on a 4-day. And so that wouldn't be a cost savings for them. So if there were 648 subs at GEMS this year, that's every day. And those are the only ones, there were many that weren't filled or they were no sub jobs. And so I excluded those. So these are the actual numbers that we are paying for this year. We pay at a rate of $120 a day. And so that's $77,760 that we have spent on subs at GEMS 21-22. I figured we could cut back 75% of that sub use if we went to a 4-day. And so it was 58,320. I did the same thing at GHS, 304 subs this year. It was 36,000, so I took 75% of that was 27,000. Subs at CVE, you get where I'm going here. 296 subs, 75%, 26,000. Subs at CV high school and middle school, 566 subs, $120 a day, 67,920. So 75% savings would be 50,940. So just in teacher and para substitutes, we could save 163,260 approximately. Question.
When you're counting those, are you counting sub days? And are you counting long-term subs?
I am counting long-term subs, yes, and that's more expensive. It's like $148 rate, but I only did the average of 120. Yes, that's including all of that. So when a teacher puts in for any subs, we used ready sub numbers to come up with this report. So as you can see, these are the exports from every month. This is just GEMS, but I did get them digitally from the other schools.
Just my question is how much of that is long-term subs and how much of that is people being absent?
I don't know.
Because we're not going to change any costs necessarily, you know, on the long-term subs. We're going to need them to still be there. But that's why I just.
Those are very rare instances that happen, long-term subs.
Don't we have quite a few right now?
Because you can't hire anyone.
Because we can't hire teachers. Because
Yeah, we have to have.
I'm just asking a question for savings, because if we have to keep long-term subs
Right.
and a huge amount of that is long-term subs,
I don't know what the, yeah, I mean, that would
then
even add
we're
more.
not really going to.
That would even add more. And that's actually, does that come out of subs or how does that come out, Todd?
Well, there's a mixture because we'll pull the salary if it's a long-term sub for a position we've been unable to fill. It'll eventually go to the minimum amount set by the state of Idaho for their salary. So in this case, $40,000. We have had long-term subs in almost all of our buildings due to low recruit.
And I was also, when you said that, Melissa, I was thinking like pregnancies, sickness. I forgot about the long-term employees that were actually, I mean, they're great. I just.
No, the only reason I was just
Yeah.
asking is if they're in that number, then
Yes.
we're not saving.
Do those go through Ready Sub?
No, they
No.
don't. You guys just hire them long-term.
And that's pulled through Ready Sub from.
We can't.
This is just Ready Sub?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the next instance that I looked at was buses and drivers. Fuel 550 to 575 a gallon. And the buses go 7 miles per gallon. And so there's 800 miles a day, 400 for each community. And so it could be a savings of 66.41 at the least. Unless gas.
You should be reminded, though, that the federal portion for your transportation is reimbursed at 85 cents on the dollar.
Okay,
And transportation is probably the best reimbursed area we have in our schools.
so do we only take 20%?
Where your biggest savings comes from is when you have non-reimbursable miles. Things like heading to a baseball game. Those aren't reimbursable miles. Those hit the district 100%. So even though you've got rid of 20% of one day, which would equal 20% for routes, just note that you also miss out on those reimbursable miles, which also equate to depreciation schedules for those buses. That's a part of how you repurchase new buses to keep that fleet within that 12-year age. So that's just a worthy note.
Excellent. So would that be like 20% of the 66 or? We would be owing, I mean.
Well, are you showing that for the whole one day, the 113?
Mhm.
I would imagine.
No, the 66, yeah, 66.41 is fuel only for that Friday.
Yeah, you could multiply that by 85%, basically, and that you're probably in the $20,000 savings range for the fuel.
Okay.
Then you're reimbursed through service, any maintenance around those particular pieces, and our wages are reimbursed in those areas as well.
Okay, so we would be about 20% of the 113.
No, I think you'd be 85%.
We would be
85 cents on the dollar, you're reimbursed federally.
Okay, so it would be 15% savings on that 113.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
okay. Excellent.
So that's why I'm thinking to get about $20,000+ savings.
And actually, the figure 85% is 56,455.
Awesome.
So about 10,000.
Still savings, and that's one
Mhm.
day.
Yep.
Okay.
I know, that's a teacher.
Okay, so then in 2005, we didn't consider electricity because I think they were planning to keep things open, but on the 3 to 4 days on Fridays that we weren't gonna have staff there, we had planned on, well, I had planned on not having anybody in the building. I mean, of course, if a teacher needs to come in and do some work, they do it in the dark or most of the lights are shut off, that's not the end of the world, but because we do that at night and all that all the time anyway. So Avista, those are the yearly expenses from Avista. The total for a year is 411,122. So I just took a 10% savings on that, figured that might help as well. I know you still have to keep it on, but there might be some sort of savings. And I do have the documents that I got for all of this. So if anybody asks, like, all those numbers aren't right, actually I got them from the people. And this actually came from our district office, but it was a little old, but it's still, I think, are they still 21.19? I think 21.19 an hour for busing.
2120. 2120.
21. Oh, 21. Okay. So the approximate savings, even though my bus is a little wrong, for the subs, 163,260. The bus savings, I don't know what that would be. Okay, thank you. And the electricity, 41,000. So maybe like 270, I don't know, some sort of savings. At least 200,000 in savings, which covers that $190,000 deficit. I did not have time to really look at much else. It's been a little crazy, but I figured some paras might not want to work on Fridays or might not want the extra time. And so but we could have some cost savings. I think we're gonna get cost savings. I talked to Mike Garrett, the Orofino superintendent. Again, I've actually talked to all the superintendents that are in the 4 days, and they, locally. And they've all said, you're gonna get some savings that you didn't even realize you were gonna get. So, yeah, so that's it for now. Thank you for being prepared. Yeah. What did I have? So we're at one. Oh, I had 200 down there. That was for my notes, but I could be wrong.
I'm just curious, Todd, do we really have that high of an absentee?
You know, I couldn't verify it. I haven't done any time researching that, so. Given COVID impacts, there's no doubt the last 2 years that it's going to be skewed, in terms of absentee rate. I mean, we were seeing, well over 100+ kids a day at GEMS, there for a while. In fact, all of our schools were really on the brink of close to 30% absentee rate. Just teetering a lot. CV High had some real high absentee rate for a while. So the COVID impact, I guess that's probably you try and research maybe prior to COVID, what were those clearer numbers for illness? I don't. So that might play a little part in what he was trying to gather some information on pieces that were skewed. We had obviously some staff out due to illness. But I can't speak to it at all. I can just say that would be an impact that over the last two years would be something that would skew those numbers.
And I'm not discounting substitutes at all, but I think it would be so much better if there was a concentration of teachers giving their all in the 4-day and getting that 3-day break from exposure to whatever, and same with the kids, the students, having that 3rd day to reset the immunity. I don't know, I think the classroom teachers do a better job. I don't mean better, sorry, I didn't mean that substitutes, but I think that there might be some more content provided when the classroom teachers in the room, and if professional development was done on Fridays, that would cut back a lot of the subs and a lot of the people being gone. If there were meetings on those Fridays.
But if we're doing meetings and having professional development on those Fridays, then the lights are on in the building.
It's just one Friday a month.
I know.
And the entire building
change.
Well, and that's the point I was trying to make, is I don't know where the balance point is where everybody goes, oh, that works. Maybe we will never get there, but if we don't try, I don't see how we even get close. Both of you make good points. I'm not doubting. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to spend so much time on this, but with all due respect, I've heard a lot of speculation in what you were saying as well. If a lot of if statements, and I'm not challenging a bit. Excuse me.
I can't get numbers right now.
Excuse me.
More
I'm not
accurate than
challenging your data. I'm obviously, it's a moving target. It's maybe the best way to look at it. So this is part of the problem. As you can see, it's not just as simple as flipping a switch.
But I actually did get very specific numbers from our Ready sub program, and I do know that it is $120 a day. So I do know that the sub savings could be significant.
But it could be. I mean, I guess that's a question. As to when we looked at Ready subject, did we pull everybody being gone on Friday? I mean, nobody says. I mean, if we weren't here Fridays, does that mean it's going to change that? We don't know. So I guess my question is what if we shorten the time frame that we look at this in? I will remake my motion and say, let's have the report done by the October meeting.
Again, you're going into the next school year.
I know.
I'm not gonna second any of those. I'm sorry.
I will second that motion.
Oh, do you want to say it again?
We need a calendar.
Or excuse me, October.
Remember, people make decisions that can.
I would motion the Mountain View School District operates on a 5-day school week, except for Oak City, and convenes a task force made up of community members, teachers,
And for Elk City?
No comment, please.
and administrators to evaluate the educational, financial, and community impacts of a 4-day school week. The task force members to be selected by the incoming superintendent, with a final report and recommendations to be given to the board no later than the regular October 2022 board meeting.
Second on the table for the discussion, please. All right, then I'll start. The way I look at it is I didn't hear anything in the motion that said we're not going to go forward. What I heard was that we were going to look at this. I like what B said originally when this whole thing got started about a trial period. Okay, I think it makes more sense for us to do the study before we start the 4-day school week, but most of us can walk and chew gum at the same time, so let's do the best that we can. I don't see the harm in implementing the 4-day school week. It's my position. I'm not asking anybody up here to agree with me, but this is my position, is I don't see the harm in doing both. Is we have an ongoing evaluation. Maybe while we're actually doing it, we'll learn a few things we didn't even anticipate. Who knows? But unless I'm misunderstanding what Mrs. Cashmere is saying, am I misreading something?
I'm saying this.
She's saying do a 5 days.
Stay at the 5-day week, okay.
And you just seconded it.
Okay, that's fine. I did.
Stay with it.
I'm thinking about it.
Can I ask why you asked for our opinion?
It was
Yeah.
12.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask why you asked us all to come down here for our opinion when 90% of us asked to not
I
do
will be
this?
happy to talk to you after the meeting. I will.
It's not
It's now.
Rescind your second.
Did you not know that the motion was made on a 5-day week, or you just clarified on record that if I misunderstood you, Ms. Cashmere said 5-day, and you said, oh. I misunderstood.
Originally.
So do you redact your second?
I got it. I misunderstood the second motion, and so I withdraw my second.
Thank you.
Any further motions or discussions? We're adjourned.